Well, this is embarrassing. So it turns out that Donald Trump didn't want to go to the G20 summit because of some nonsense genocide story. And it turns out that he did actually send a partial delegation. And so when he's saying, oh, we can't go there, we couldn't possibly go there, he did actually send delegates. Now, the closing ceremony was earlier. And during the closing ceremony, the US delegation, the junior delegation, as it turns out, was refused entry to the G20 closing summit. Apparently, they cried a lot and were very, very annoyed and very frustrated that they weren't allowing Americans into the South African G20 summit. Folks, your comments, would love to hear them.
Donald Trump refused to support the G20 declaration and demanded it be blocked, but world leaders historically approved it anyway. The world leaders at the G20 Summit adopted a declaration addressing climate change as well as other global challenges. This was on Saturday, and it was after the declaration was drafted without U.S. input. This is a move that a White House official called shameful. The United States did not attend the summit, with President Trump reportedly opposing the declaration. Despite this, the summit went ahead and a consensus declaration was adopted by the attending leaders. Normally, G20 declarations are adopted at the end of the summit, but in Joburg, it was approved at the start of the two-day gathering after intense negotiations. Ramaphosa thanked the delegations who worked tirelessly to produce the document. This marks a historic moment. The first G20 summit to be held in Africa has successfully delivered a declaration pushing for multilateral solutions on global challenges, even in the face of diplomatic tension with the U.S. But what do you think about the U.S. boycott? Was it justified or a diplomatic misstep? Also, how significant is it that Africa hosted its first G20 summit without Trump's endorsement? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section.
Furious world leaders at the G20 in South Africa made a powerful statement against the United States boycott of the G20, which is being held in South Africa. The Trump regime is boycotting the G20 in South Africa because Donald Trump has fabricated that there is a white genocide taking place in South Africa. So he says the United States is out, to which the world leaders in the G20, or should I call it the G19, they're like, great, we don't want you here. When you're here, we have to deal with your drama, your baby behavior, and all of the baggage that comes with you, and you're like an asset for Putin. Why the hell would we want you here? So the G19, no longer the G20, they did something unprecedented. So they gave their united declaration of the G20, or now the G19, immediately, right when the conference starts. They did it. Now that never happens. What they normally do is you wait until the end of the conference, and then there's a lot of negotiation going back and forth about what the declaration is, the joint statement coming out of the G20 would be. Not this time. So Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, he, on behalf of the united G19 minus the United States, says, here are our values. Multilateralism can and does deliver. And Donald Trump's whole position is being anti-multilateralism. Trump's whole thing is go it alone. So the G20, now the G19, immediately said, we stand together, we support each other, we support multilateralism, we don't need the United States here. Watch as the president of South Africa, who's hosting the G19, says that. Here, play this clip.
This G20 leader summit has a responsibility not to allow the integrity and the credibility of the G20 to be weakened. In fact, from this summit, we should have a sense that the G20 has been strengthened. We thank all delegations that have worked together with us in good faith to produce a worthy G20 outcome document for this historic leaders meeting. The G20 underscores the value of the relevance of multilateralism. It recognizes that the challenges that we face can only be resolved through cooperation, collaboration, and partnership. The adoption of the declaration from the summit sends an important signal to the world that multilateralism can and does deliver. It sends a message of hope and solidarity across the world. It tells the world that as the leaders of the G20, we will keep fast to our...
Trump woke up this morning, and yeah, he woke up, I know, and is on another Truth Social meltdown, writing a very long post. I'm not even going to share it here. None of it's even really worth it. I mean, he's a lame duck and is losing power minute by minute, especially with this massive Russia scandal going on. And he's had this 28-point peace plan blow up in his face because it appears, has yet to be 100% verified, but it appears that it was drafted by Russia. And then he demanded Ukraine to agree to it. And it's blown up in his face. Everyone's calling him out. The allies are calling him out. And he's having a meltdown on Truth Social. And he's saying that the leadership in Ukraine has been ungrateful for everything the United States has done to them. And so he's calling Vladimir Zelensky an ungrateful person. Like, seriously? This is just disgusting behavior by the president. Out of the whole post he did, that's like the big takeaway, because all of it is just word salad anyways. But he's flailing about because this is maybe the biggest scandal next to the Epstein files in his presidency, and is blowing up in his face. And people need to be fired. Congressmen, senators are calling for people to be fired or to resign over this. It's really, really bad. He went on into his usual thing of, had he won the 2020 election, the war would have never been started, would have never happened under his presidency. He blames Joe Biden for it. And he goes on another post and calls for the release of a woman who's sitting in jail for trying to interfere in the 2020 election. He wants her released from prison. He wants Tina Peters released, who was the county clerk in Colorado, sentenced to 9 years in prison for tapping into voter machines and messing with the data on some voting machines in the 2020 election. And she was found guilty of her crimes by a jury. I know it's early for popcorn, but now's the time. Let me know what you guys think about all this. Comment, like, share, spread the word, follow, subscribe, and I'll see you back here for the 411.
What business does the No Foreign Wars, America First president have in regime change in a foreign country? Things are escalating with Venezuela. We have been warned of an imminent escalation by the United States. And the White House says that regime change is not off the table. Our No Foreign Wars president is literally starting a foreign war, going into another country to effectuate regime change. What else are you going to call that than a foreign war? We are justifying this because we're saying they were sending fentanyl into our country? No. That's just not true. Was some coming in there? Sure. But the majority, no. And yet they executed people on suspicion of drug dealing. American people, it is time to pick a side. What business do we have effectuating regime change in a foreign country? We have been sold out. Go love your neighbor.
The Democrats are going to impeach Trump again before Christmas. The Democrats successfully impeached Donald Trump twice during his first term. The MAGA like to claim he was never impeached because he wasn't convicted. No, those are two separate things. But many things are different now. Donald Trump has very quickly lost the support of the Republicans in Congress. He told them to kill the filibuster and they laughed in his face. He told them to fight endlessly in order to prevent the release of the Epstein files. And he only changed his tune after he found out most of them were going to vote to release them anyway. Between him ruining the economy, bailing out foreign governments, while also bankrupting people's farms, even die-hard followers like Marjorie Taylor Greene no longer want anything to do with him. But the more things change, the more they stay the same. Because just like his first term, you know what's going to be used against him as evidence? This bullshit. Just like he did with January 6th, his constant incitements to violence is only going to be used against him. because he's got the craziest of the crazy who follow him now issuing tons of threats to Democrats, all of which, once again, is going to be brought up at his impeachment trial. And remember, he was successfully impeached. Enough people voted to impeach him. The only reason he was not convicted is because the people in his own party wouldn't hold him accountable. They're still spineless and gutless, but they're not afraid of him anymore because they know he's unpopular. Just look at these last few elections we've had where the Republicans absolutely got crushed. And they'd really like to maintain their seats. The last gasp of power from a failing dictator is always to declare that everyone else are the traitors. And much like everyone else, I'm really hoping that this nightmare is almost over.
What have I always said? I always say that Donald Trump will always fuck up. He's incompetent. He's stupid. He will embarrass himself. He will embarrass his administration. He will embarrass Congress, and he will embarrass the United States. And that's exactly what's going on now. Short time back, we heard that there was a new peace plan between Russia and Ukraine, and they were deciding if this was going to work out. At first, Donald Trump was touting this thing. Oh, it's a great plan. If Ukraine doesn't accept it by Thursday, well, they can just continue to fight their little hearts out. Donald Trump owned that peace plan. Then people started to see what was in the peace plan, and it looked like nothing more than a wish list for Vladimir Putin. We also found out that Ukraine wasn't even involved in the negotiations. So the backlash starts, the embarrassment starts, and then what happens? Marco Rubio tells some representatives that, oh yeah, we had nothing to do with that. That wasn't our plan. And he said that because now people were seeing the plan and said it's bullshit. So the immediate reaction by Republicans said, oh, that wasn't us. That was just Russia. That leaked out. Yeah, but Donald Trump was touting it a few days before. So now Marco Rubio is saying this 28-point peace plan, this negotiation between Russia and Ukraine, didn't involve Ukraine. We know that for sure. But now Marco Rubio is saying America wasn't even involved in this negotiation. Vladimir Putin sat down, wrote out his wish list, and said, this is it. Donald Trump says, well, there's the 28-point peace plan. Donald Trump's a lazy motherfucker. He's not a negotiator, and he's an embarrassment. Now, Representative Don Bacon, a Republican, says, this is fucking ridiculous. This is buffoonery. Somebody needs to get fired on Monday. But I guarantee you this, probably won't fire anybody on Monday. This is just yet another mistake, another embarrassment by Donald Trump and his administration. The thing about it is, it just doesn't embarrass us in this country. It embarrasses us around the world. Everybody around the world, all the leaders are looking at this, and they can't believe the stupidity and ignorance of this whole fucking thing.
So we got to talk about the corruption that is Donald Trump, the utter corruption. So this whole happy demeanor he's having the second time around in the White House is because he's well on his way to becoming a billionaire if he's not one already. And that's from exploiting his position as president. And what he's doing is aligning himself and wheeling and dealing with other dictators from other oppressed countries. When he welcomed the Saudi prince to the White House, he welcomed the man who was behind flying planes into the Twin Towers, the man who was behind having a Washington Post American journalist dismembered, and so much more. But what you also don't know is Donald Trump, through his kids, is building a skyrise in Saudi Arabia, a skyrise that practically touches the clouds. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of the real estate developments he has going on in Saudi Arabia. But I want to talk about the country of Serbia, which is my homeland, and what's going on there. So Serbia is run by their own Orban, by their own Putin, by their own Donald Trump. There are people in Serbia fighting just like people are fighting here for freedom and democracy. And Vučić, which is the president of Serbia, Vučić, is scooping up protesters, especially young students, off the streets and disappearing them without any due process, just to give you an example. Well, Jared Kushner just inked the deal to build a casino, a hotel, and a whole bunch of apartments in Serbia. And it's being built on a historical site. The historical site is an old army military base that was destroyed by NATO back when Serbia was part of the former Yugoslavia, and Yugoslavia was acting like Putin. NATO had to come in and bomb this army base. So it's been designated as a historical site by those who are fighting for freedom and democracy. And this is where Jared Kushner and Donald Trump are building their big real estate development. Are you listening, MAGA? People in Serbia are saying this is the ultimate in corruption. They are saying that Serbia's leader is in bed with Putin and that he's doing this to please Donald Trump, just like other dictators are. And they've only got one oil refinery there. And this